Guys, I've got a good one for you today. Today I bring on Kyle, a client of mine who I worked with for some time, to help him overcome his insomnia for good. Kyle reached out to me saying that he considered himself finally over insomnia completely and offered to do a success story, and I was more than happy to have him on and get his own experiences to share with all of you. Halfway through the interview, something came up, and unfortunately, we had to cut it short, but there is still plenty of value in our conversation, and we'll finish it up next week. So without further ado, here's my talk with Kyle. Kyle, the day we've all been waiting for.
Yep.
I know this was a long time coming, and I know that
Oh
this was
yeah.
something that you've been thinking about, that you've been excited for a while. Um, it's always good with these sort of stories. Is if we start off where your story began. How did your insomnia start about come about? What did you do along the way, and how did we end up meeting about a year and a half, a year ago,
Yeah.
however
Something
long
something
it was?
around there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it all started back in 2022. I mean, my whole life. I mean, everybody's kind of heard similar stories to mine, how it began, but basically, I've been a great quote unquote sleeper my whole life.
Hmm.
But there was one random night I had a sinus infection. They put me on some antibiotics, and it was one of the side effects was sleep issues. I didn't know that at the time. I ended up looking it up, but I that night I took the medication. It just kind of kept me up all night, and kind of freaked me out. And then the next couple days, I kind of went down the rabbit hole. I'm like, man, I don't want that to happen again.
Hmm.
So yeah, it kind of spiraled from there, and the first day went by, and I'm like, man, that was weird. I definitely don't
Hmm.
want that happening again. And just me kind of feeling that immense pressure. Hey, this can't happen again. Then of course it happened again, and
Hmm.
another day it happened again, and then it was a couple nights where it was okay, and then it happened again, and that was by the first week or two in, that's when I really started to kind of panic and go down the rabbit hole a little bit, as far as thinking, is there something wrong with me? Did something break? Did this medication mess me up? Like, the whole nine yards, as far as that goes. And I was trying supplements. I want to try this thing, got to try that thing. Oh, let me find some random therapy online that no one's ever heard of and try that. If it was out there, I probably tried it at least
Hmm.
once. It got to the point, there was this, I'm from Michigan, and there was this place near my house where I don't even remember what they call it now, but I mean, looking back, it just sounds so insane. They hook these little, like, I don't even know what to call them. I guess like little electrodes up to the side of your head and like the side of your cheeks, and there's a
Yep.
couple on your neck, and they basically, the way they frame it is, oh well, you hear your brain waves on a monitor and it plays it back to you. Dude, it's insane. It was like, at the time, I'm like, oh dude, that sounds perfect. Let me try that. But yeah, then looking back now, I'm like, dude, what a bunch of snake oil that was. But
Yeah.
yeah, it just kind of spiraled from there, and the more I tried, the worse it got, and that's just kind of where I found myself after a while. Was real stuck. All right, good.
Okay. So yeah, very good. It's as you just brought up your own struggles of trying to find the magic silver bullet that's going to take away all the insomnia. You mentioned the supplements. You mentioned the experimental brainwave snake oil
Yeah.
thing, and there's a couple of things that's really hard that I think everyone who's gone through insomnia faces is that they try out all the stuff that has a lot of legitimate research done behind it that says, "Oh no, magnesium or melatonin are it's objectively true that those things improve sleep quality and sleep duration." So we go to the top shelf stuff first, of course, whatever Google says, and say, "Oh, this has been around for decades. It seems to be very true that this helps out with sleep." And then we try it and it doesn't work, so that hurts because we feel, oh well, then there's something exceptionally broken about my situation. And then we start to explore other alternatives and options and stuff, and you found this recording brainwave sort of therapy, whatever. And when you're at that level, it's hard for you to know, okay, is this legitimate or is this not legitimate? And then once you find folks with my sort of background, it makes it even more demoralized. It makes it very unlikely that somebody like me, who's just some guy on YouTube, could help other people out with their insomnia. And that was a big obstacle that I had to deal with before I signed up with other programs such as the Sleep Coach School, because I just didn't think, these guys are.
Yeah.
If my sleep physician could help me out, what are the odds that these guys could help me out? You know?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I'm glad you brought the sleep coach school up because that was one part I forgot. I eventually did end up finding them on YouTube, and just a little aside here, I completely left this out, but yeah, I
Hmm.
ended up finding Daniel's program with the sleep coach school, and this was right around the time where I start as trying everything, I started to use weed like gummies at nighttime to help. And right around the time and that was the one thing that quote unquote I guess worked. And
Hmm.
right around that time, that was when I found Daniel and started implementing the teachings, but I was also using the weed pretty heavily. So in my head, I'm like, oh wow, yeah, this makes perfect sense. But I was still relying on that crutch at the same time. So it kind of added another layer to the problem where it was like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
I understand it, and things maybe it did get a little bit easier initially, but there was still this lingering, you know, thing that I didn't do before that I was doing now that I just desperately didn't want to be doing, and that kind of stayed with me for a long time. That was the longest portion of the struggle, and I ended up leaving the program, and even afterwards I was still using it, and kind of just pushing it to the background like, oh, it's not a problem, but I'd still have bad nights, and I
Hmm.
was deathly afraid of stopping it, and it became a pretty big issue between me and my wife, and just the family life, and it was giving me more
Hmm.
anxiety during the day than I had before, and it just became such a problem that I was just like, man, there's no way I can keep doing this. And my wife was pleading for me to get off of it, and I was just in
Hmm.
denial about like, oh, it's not a big deal. It's helping me, and honestly, it was hurting me more. And that was kind of around the time that I found you, and me and you started working together. And
Hmm.
after our first few talks, it was kind of the elephant in the room. It's like, yeah, you've made a lot of progress, but there's still one thing that you're hanging on to that is the problem. And deep down I knew it was, and it
Hmm.
was just so hard to admit to myself. My wife, tried to convince me so many times it's a problem, and I would just explain it away that it wasn't. And
Yeah.
even talking to you, it's kind of like, well, you've got it all down pat, but there's one big thing that you're kind of hanging on to here, and I think that's the answer. So for me, that was one thing that had to go, and I was terrified to let it go, and it started to get it into. I take my faith very seriously.
Hmm.
I'm a Christian, and I have immense faith in Jesus Christ, and it was just something that I felt, I guess, guilty about, and I started to have like pretty deep conviction about, and it was something that for my spiritual life just felt like it needed to go. And back in, what was it? It's been over 6 months now. It was like the second week of January. I
Hmm.
decided to just stop taking it, and it was rocky in the beginning.
Oh,
But
sure.
yeah, that was in the beginning. It was pretty rocky. There was a good month where it was kind of up and down, and there were still random bad nights here and there. But overall, it's been since then it's been kind of smooth sailing. And then one thing I did want to say, I don't know if we'll get into this at the end, but
Sure.
there's still the random off night where it's you'll have an issue like falling asleep, but it's not like it's not a, I don't know what word to use. I guess a point of panic anymore. It's just kind of like, well, it's a bummer, but whatever, and
Hmm.
it kind of that's where it starts and ends. But as far as that goes, it's not a full blown meltdown mode anymore, which is
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, it's you've kind of said it before in our talks. Don't let perfect be the enemy of the good, and that's kind of where I'm at with it at this point.
Yeah, and you've been struggling with it for it. Let me put it this way: what you regarding what you just said with that one-off night, or the occasional night, it makes sense that those still happen. When I was about even a year and a half into recovery, I would still have like an occasional night, and of course, the old feelings would come back. The
Yeah,
old doubts, the what if this time is, and it makes sense because we went through this. It really is a traumatic thing for many years, and it was it's quite a hellish experience. So it makes sense for there to still be those little pings after the fact. But at the end of the day, y- you haven't lost any of the progress that you haven't forgotten everything that you've learned, and you're at the point now, and this is why it's really important to, or it's very helpful to wean ourselves off of those sort of crutches. For you, it was the THC gummies, is that now you don't have any doubt, that massive doubt in the back of your head of, well, maybe I should increase up, go up another 5 milligrams. Maybe you should take another gummy. Maybe you should do this. Da, 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 da.
Right.
You're not playing that sort of sleep math game anymore, which
Right.
is that's why it was super helpful for you. And on top of that, you mentioned how much that it's never helpful when we tr do something to try to force sleep to happen, especially when we're afraid of it. But when it's something as serious as something that's violating our personal principles, and that was a big issue for you, for not only for you, your your religion, but your family life
Right.
as well. That was it was
Yeah.
a massive, massive thing, and it took us a while of it took us a lot of calls for us to gradually wean our way down from what you were taking before down to going cold turkey and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's just a it was I remember it was a
Oh, it was
long
rough,
process.
yeah, because
Yeah.
I went back and forth like, "Oh, cut down to this and, stay at a certain dose for a little while." Then I'm like, "Oh, I'll
Mhm.
cut again," and then, you have a couple bad nights, and then you don't, and then you cut again, it gets worse, then you go back. It was and I basically just got to the point where I was like, I can't do this anymore," and I ended up, I got him out of the house, I just threw it away at a certain point, so I'm just like, I don't even want it as an option anymore. So it got to
Yeah.
the point where I'm like, "Well, what are you gonna do?" You don't have it. So, and then
Yeah.
it took, a couple weeks, of doing it on your own where you're like, man, there's nothing wrong with you. Nothing's broken. Nothing that can't be rewritten,
Mhm.
and, yeah, it's just, it was kind of blew my mind on, I don't want to use the word easy cause I don't want to, downplay the experience that people go through. Cause
Yeah, yeah.
it wasn't, I guess,
It was simple.
well, exactly. It was simple. It just wasn't easy. Like the
Yeah.
answer was simple, but the experience wasn't easy. It was
Yeah, winning the Super Bowl is easy. You just gotta
right, yeah.
get more
Yeah,
points than
just
the other
score
team.
more points than the other guy. Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
fucking piece
exactly.
of cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, yeah, there's, and I wanted to, I wanted to bring up, you touched on that it worked for you, and that's the trickiest part because when we find these crutches, usually, almost always, and I was guilty of this as well when I was, one of I think my biggest crutch was playing around with the sleep restriction time that, is so commonly discussed in CBTI. For anyone who's not familiar with who's listening, is a very common practice in CBTI where you limit the amount of time in bed. And I won't get into the theory as to why that works, but it's a very common practice. And that was something that, for me, like Kyle here, it worked.
Yeah.
And until it didn't. And of course, this wasn't something that we did before Insomnia started, but we're so afraid of ripping out this thing that worked for us because we feel like our sleep is like this fragile house of cards. And it's like, okay, don't touch it. It's fine. It's okay. Don't do anything to interfere with it. Even though our sleep isn't great, it's just kind of like this rocky thing that has its ups and downs for this, really long period of time. Some people there, it's just consistently down here. But
Yeah.
either way, we don't want to take away the one thing that's been shown to give us some sort of salvation
Right.
in this thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And it was one of those things where also, with the people get fixated on, oh, you got to have X amount of hour, and that's one thing I like never paid attention to before this. It
Mhm.
was, oh, you got to have 8 hours of sleep, and that was something I never cared about. And I'm like, wait, I do? I mean, I didn't get that when I didn't have this. And then, you know what I mean? And then it got even
Yeah,
worse. And I've always kind of been, even now, like, I mean, 6 hours max, like that's all I'm getting usually. Like, and I'm
yeah,
fine with it because that's just how it's always been. And, there'll be some nights where it's a random 5 and that's fine too. But I mean, I got to the point where I'm like, dude, 3, 4, like what the hell? You know what I mean? Like it just,
yeah,
that's when I really started to panic. And then even now being kind of, on the outs with it, it's just like my body in general I've never been a long 8-hour guy anyways, 5, 6 max is pretty much how it's always been my whole
Mhm.
life. And it was more the focus on like having to have the perfect 7 to 8 hours, which is what made it worse. And, that's never been my thing to begin with.